Okay, thanks everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Jim Blaney on the ITSM product marketing team. We have a great session planned for you today. In continuing our theme around ITSM maturity, we are pleased to have Qaneet from Woolworths of South Africa to speak to us today about integrating service management processes and kind of that journey that he's taken with him and his team towards that kind of ultimate goal, if you will, of achieving a higher level of ITSM maturity. Qaneet presented this presentation recently at CA World. It was very well received. Over 100 attendees were there. So it was a fantastic presentation and participation. And so we're pleased to have Qaneet to speak to us today. Just a few items before we get started. We do want to have time for questions, so we'll have some time at the end of the presentation to take your questions. We'll be using the Q&A feature here in WebEx, so please, if you do have questions, submit them through that. And then also, if you could keep your phones on mute, possible. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Qaneet, and it is all yours.
Thanks very much, Jim. Hi, good afternoon, good morning to everyone, wherever you may be calling in or wherever you find yourself this afternoon. I'm very actually flattered and humbled by that introduction that Jim just gave now. But like he said, this is a presentation or some extracts of a presentation that I did at CA World in November of last year. And basically it was a case study in integrating service management processes and how that can be done in a way that drives stability throughout the entire IT estate. I think the important thing to note that when my team prepared this presentation, what our key focus was really on how we took a theoretical model that had been spoken about and written about a lot within the ITIL framework and implemented that, and how we actually realized benefits that up until that point had been completely theoretical, but how we actually saw the actual benefits coming out of it. And for us, certainly, it's been a 7 to 8 year journey on this, with many small wins along the way. That got us to the point where we are at now. And the point where we are at now is where service manager and service management within the Woolworths context essentially calls the shots in terms of the day-to-day running of IT. And that includes the management, how projects are managed and implemented as well. So that's just some background in terms of the underlying, sort of the thread or the underlying context of the presentation and the message that we're going to be trying to bring bring through the presentation, and hopefully that's the value that everyone can take out of the presentation. So just in terms of the agenda, I'll just speak a little bit about Woolworths, who we are, etc., what our service management structure looks like, and then just some of the best practices, disciplines, and frameworks that we follow, that we've implemented, what our maturity journey is, some of the quick wins, and some advices that we can offer in terms of our journey that we've been on. And then just our organizations, our service management organizations journey looking forward over the next sort of 2 to 4 years or so. So a little bit about Woolworths. Woolworths is a South African retailer. It consists of Woolworths South Africa and then our Woolworths Holdings Board. The Holdings Board, the entire company has a footprint in Australia and New Zealand, where 48% of the business sits, and then 52% of the business sits in South Africa. We've got 201 stores outside of South Africa and 464 stores inside of South Africa. I think at this point in time we're the third biggest food retailer in South Africa, and we're probably about third in clothing as well. Approximately 24,000 employees. We got about 130 tiered systems, and I'll get into sort of a high-level definition of what I mean by tiered. But in total, we're just sitting on about 208 systems across various platforms. We really, the market that we are very active in is sort of the foods, clothing, and general merchandise. General merchandise being things like homeware, and bedding and so on. And obviously, financial services is a small part of the business, because we also we own our own debtors book. We do a lot of, we've got an in-store credit card basically that can be used in our stores and can be used as a credit card at any other retailer as well. I think the key thing that we are known for in the South African market is around our quality and our service. We really are aiming for sort of the upper class, the upper class or the upper middle class of the market. So we're a very aspirational brand. So I mean, to put it in layman's terms, when people shop at Woolworths, it normally indicates that they are living quite well. They are living at sort of the upper end, the middle to upper end, middle class, upper class. And we pride ourselves on convenience, freshness, and extreme quality. We really drive that relentlessly throughout the business in terms of through all of our products. If you look at the slide there, just coming out of the W, that's sort of our business value. That's it's ingrained in our DNA. It's in everything that we do, from our relationships with suppliers, the products we produce. It's the qualities that we look for in all of our employees when we do recruitment. It's really integrity, doing what you say you will do, service, value, innovation, sustainability, energy, quality, and style. I'm supposed to memorize that, but I've actually read it over there. So that's just a very high-level synopsis of Woolworths is. And the underlying thing, like I said, is quality. And what always strikes me is when I walk into a Woolworths store and I look at any product, and I look at it from a perspective of supplier, and I look at this product, which really, for all intents and purposes, is a world-class product. And I always think that the processes and thereby the systems that are involved in bringing this product from the supply to the shelf have to be world-class. If you are selling world-class products, you need to get processes and systems that are world-class. And that is sort of what the driving motivation is for me as the head of service in terms of how I run my service organization. Then we've got something, just a little bit more about Woolworths. We've got something called the Good Business Journey. So we've collaborated recently with Pharrell Williams, and who is I think he's a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And that's just because as an organization we really serious about where our products come from, where it's sourced. We're very much into things like ethical farming, ethical fishing. We don't undercut our suppliers. We work with our suppliers. In a South African context, we've got something, a sector of society called the previously disadvantaged, who were the ones who were sort of, if you want, for lack of a better word, disenfranchised under the old apartheid regime. That is just prior to the African National Congress coming into power. And essentially we do a lot of work with people from previously disadvantaged communities who have now become dedicated Woolworths suppliers and will supply us with specific products. So we've done a lot in terms of supplier development and black economic empowerment and so on. And it's a journey that I think as an organization we're extremely proud of. Excuse me. And there's just one example of one of our stores. This is one of the stores in Cape Town, South Africa. Store just recently won an international award in terms of its layout and just in terms of the look and feel of the store. Really an amazing store, and it's located in the picturesque suburb of Somerset West. And I mean, if I look at the picture here, this is generally the look and the feel of all of our Woolly stores, whether it's a small little standalone store or a supermarket. And looking at this now, the motto of our foods business comes to mind, which is the heart of the supermarket and the soul of the deli. So I don't know if I've made the impression that our company is very serious on innovation, and extremely serious on quality and on providing our customers with good value. So we, as a retailer, we need to react very quickly to changes in the market, and we need quick turnaround on system changes, on functionality changes in our systems. And when you've got a fast-moving business, you need fast-moving IT. And when you have fast-moving IT, your service management team needs to keep up with that. You need to be innovative within the service management team as well. So that's the context of how we pull the thread from the business strategy of where we're taking the business right down through to service management. Just in terms of my own structure, the head of service and operations, I'm not sure if everyone can see my cursor, but that's me that sits on top there. And then I've got a operations and a call center manager, which is basically your help desk, which is the call center team. And then I've got a production monitoring team, which is, I think in the old days they were called the operations team. And they basically manage or monitor the batches, the 24/7 by 365 batch monitoring and data center alerting that comes through that team. So we've put them into a single team, and within that structure there, I've got my incident and event management, ITIL processes covered. Then I've got a change enablement practitioner, and any changes that we make in IT in terms of our ways of working or new service management processes that we bring in is championed by this change enablement practitioner. So that person breaks down what the change is, and I'm not talking about system change, I'm just referring to ways of working and from a process point of view. And it's really just to ensure that everyone in IT is up to date in terms of where service management is going and how it is we're working and what our process is about. So this person will even cover content in terms of how do we log a change, what's the incident management workflow, the problem management workflow, etc. The service delivery manager, within this area, yeah, I've got various service managers who are accountable to each of our various business units or divisions. So I've got a service manager for products, which is clothing and foods. I've got one for our financial services division, one for marketing, finance, and HR, bespoke apps. A lot of our applications are written in-house, supply chain, business intelligence, which is our reporting, and then international. This area here, really, from an ITIL point of view, is covering problem management and also responsible for DR. So just a break from the traditional service management, the way we do it, is we've made service management accountable for the operational execution of disaster recovery. So we take the business continuity plans and we translate that or sort of deconstruct that into DR plans, disaster recovery plans for the various business units, and we also coordinate all of the disaster recoveries. We actually have had a couple of disasters in the last couple of years, so it's not it's something that's very high on the agenda of our board. Then the systems and technical manager. So this is basically the person that is managing, if I want to call it, innovation in my area, and is looking after the CA technical stack amongst other things. And that is doing everything from our incident management, problem management, change management, release management, all of those ITIL processes that are automated by our CA service desk technology. And then they're also looking after some performance monitoring and testing software, the CA service catalog, and I've already mentioned change control management. So this is a technical team that sits in my structure, and they are really looking at enabling all of the service management processes via the CA service, service desk technology and service catalog technology that we have. Another thing that they're also responsible, obviously, for is the asset management process, and that is something that we are busy switching on now in 2017. Then Service Improvement Center of Excellence. This individual here has got 2 people reporting to him, as you can see there, and they are really responsible for service strategy and for the service design. So any new project that comes on board that gets initiated by the business, we get a change control log for it at approval, and then we sort of manage it from a change control point of view throughout the lifespan of that project, whether it's 6 months, 3 months, 2 years, even up to 5 years. Essentially what happens here is we're looking at how we transition something from a project into production, something which is very difficult. So I always think of it as in terms of, I always explain this to my team in terms of a car dealership. So you've got, if you take a German car company, German cars are very big in South Africa. You take a German car company, all of the parts are molded in Germany. They then get shipped to all of the assembly plants throughout the world. We've got a big plant in the eastern part of our country, and then the cars are assembled there according to an instruction manual. That we see all part of what we would call sort of the project management and everything that you find in your SDLC. The moment the customer takes ownership of that car and they pull it into a service center to have the car serviced, the car is now being worked on by people who had no hand in the assembly, whether it was the creating of the components or the assembly of the car. So what processes and documentation are required to enable this person to understand how the car works and what it is that they need to do to be able to service the car. So that's the analogy that I normally use for service management. As that service component, you have people who are supporting something, a piece of software, a piece of infrastructure, but they had no hand in building it. So to counter that or to remedy that, if you will, we try and get involved in projects as early as possible to guide the project teams in terms of what is required once the project goes live. It's something that an example I normally use a lot. Today in our organization, I'm still sitting dealing with problems. I've got people in my team that are still dealing with problems at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, based on bad decisions that were made in projects more than 9, 10 years ago. So to avoid that scenario and to make sure that when a project goes live, the end product that they're putting in can be supported, has got warranty, and has got utility. So the service improvement, service of excellence is the area that looks after that component for me. And obviously it does work in conjunction with the rest of the structure, with input from the rest of the structure. Just in terms of the ITIL life cycle phases, the ones that I'm going to be covering specifically are the ones that are highlighted in blue. So you'll see under service strategy, there's sort of demand management, service level management, continuity management, service measurement, release and deployment, and under operations, event management, incident management, request fulfillment, and problem management. So these are the areas that we focused on a lot in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years. And where we've seen the most of our gains in, and we've seen a lot of benefit coming from it. And they were specifically selected because of burning points in our IT estate and organization at the time, and because we knew going after these processes would give us the best return. Just in terms of where we come from, so prior to embarking on this journey, we were in a very chaotic state. We had really no defined incident management process. I've actually held every single position in service management, and I started about 19 years ago as a call taker in the help desk, logging incidents. And I can remember logging an incident for a problem, then withdrawing my phone from the pool, running up 2 flights of stairs or taking the lift, whichever was quick at the time, and then telling the second line person, I've just sent you an incident, can you please have a look at it? And that's how we used to work. So there was no defined incident management process. People never followed it. We never did business impact assessments on any of our changes. We would just look at the technical change and then implement it. No communication to the business. High staff turnover. We had a monthly cab. The problem that I have with a monthly cab is if you represent something at the monthly cab for implementation in 24, 25 days' time, by the time you implement it, everybody's forgotten that the change has been approved or that change is going in. We had no forward schedule, so we couldn't see what was coming down the line. And when I speak to my counterparts in South Africa, a lot of them are spending a lot of time looking down the line on the forward schedule of changes, looking at what is coming in the next couple of months, and then trying to shift those changes around into slots where they will have the least amount of business impact. And our cab really was one person who had understanding or thought he had an understanding of the whole organization, and then he would decide if a change went in or it didn't go in. If he didn't like it, he'd decline your change, and if he liked it, your change would go in. There was no real assessment that was being done on it. And then we had no service level agreements with our business. We actually went to the business 7 years ago and told us, do you know what a service level agreement is? Well, you need to have service level agreements with us, because ultimately that is how you gauge IT's performance. Subsequently today, service level agreements and the adherence to it forms 25% of every single person in IT's end of year performance. So that's what we basically rated on in terms of performance of the year. 1 quarter weighting has been added to service level agreements. So it's a lot. We've come a long way since then. And then we did no root cause analysis, so we had no problem management in our environment. There was no problem ownership, a lot of finger pointing. We call it the Douglas Green effect. but I suppose if you're not South African, you won't understand that. And then our assets were really just tracked by our finance business unit and not really by IT. We had the scenario where a point-of-sale device would go down, and then it would be taken out of the store by our vendor, because we've got vendors who manage our point-of-sale devices. They would take it to a lab, supposedly, and then 2-3 days later they deploy it to another store, and then that store would phone in for an incident on the same device, and then they just do the same thing. So we had problematic devices. Nobody was finding the root cause of what was causing the issues, and these things were sort of just moving around the environment. And I think when I did the analysis at the time, every single point-of-sale device in our entire business was had an incident logged against it every 6 weeks, which means that if you had 1,000 point-of-sale devices, then each one of them, within a 6-week period, you would log 1,000 incidents against, because all of them would have a problem within 6 weeks. So the number of incidents we had were quite high. And that was because we really had no problem management process. So that's essentially where we came from. That's how I found the service environment. When I got into this position about 3 years ago, a lot of work had been done to sort of change that. I was sort of unofficially doing this role 2 years prior to that, and then officially for the last 3 years. And that's the chaotic state that we came from. There was no real value, or people didn't see the value of having service management processes in place. And then just in terms of where we are, so when we last audited ourselves, we put ourselves sort of in that stable quadrant. And there are certain things that we now need to do to get us into the proactive quadrant. And if you look at everything that is highlighted, those are the things that we focus on to get us to where we are stable. And there are things that we need to focus on further down the service management life cycle, if you want to call it that. That will sort of get us to the proactive and the predictive state. I must state, however, that we are, I don't want to say content or happy, but we are I suppose we are quite happy with the fact that we are in a stable state. We know what we need to do to get us to proactive, and we know, and those are the things that we are going after now. But in terms of where we are right now, we consider ourselves stable. We're managing the IT estate well. We're doing whatever it is that we need to do, and so on, and we're doing it in the correct manner. So if I could go on to the next slide, it's just our service level management. So I'm now going to speak about how we derive our service level agreements with our business, and this is the framework we use. This is a very busy slide. So essentially what we did was, and I don't know if anybody who's done it the same way, we took business continuity principles, which is really just your governance, risk, and compliance framework, and we took the ITIL framework on the right-hand side over there, and we merged them to give us our service level agreements. If you look at this over here on the left-hand side, so in other words, we combined BCP and day-to-day delivery to the business into a single framework. So our DR, we let our DR requirements, our disaster recovery requirements, guide what our service level agreements should be with the business. And I'll explain that now. We use particular risk categories. So if a system goes down, what is the financial risk? Are there any legal or compliance or regulations that we need to comply with in the event of a system going down? That's the basis, a system going down, losing a system, or a subset of systems or a bunch of systems or the entire data center. What's the impact on our customer? Is there any impact from a health, safety, and environment and quality risk perspective, and employee relations? So an example of employee relations risk is if our payroll system goes down. An example of health, safety, environmental, and quality risk is we don't put gelatin in any of our yogurts because of allergies. So what happens if we find that the suppliers accidentally put gelatin in the yogurts, or that we've got tree nuts in something that is supposed to not have tree nuts in, and people have allergies for tree nuts. So that is the sort of the risk category framework that we use. And then we look at our systems, and really what we're looking for here are our core business capabilities. So you've got capabilities on the first level. On the level below that, you've got your business processes, and then all IT ever does really is we automate those business processes. So we're a business enabler. So what we do is we're linking all of our our systems, our applications, to a business process, and then the process is linked to a business capability. So we're ensuring we know why we have a system, what the system is supposed to do, and where it fits in the entire system matrix. So we're looking at just key core capabilities and so on. And then we're obviously looking at our recovery time objectives. So within a DR environment, a disaster recovery, we want to know how quickly a particular system needs to be recovered before we start impacting on these risk categories that we've got listed here at the bottom. And that is what drives our recovery time objective in a disaster recovery perspective. So all of our systems with the shortest recovery time objective get tiered as tier 0, and they are absolutely indispensable to the business. There's no workaround. The business cannot function without that system. Then you've got tier 1. They might not be customer-facing, but they are core systems in terms of getting stock into our supply chain and into our stores. And there might be a manual workaround, but it's complex. But essentially, very little that you can do from a workaround point of view. And then you go into tier 2 systems, which are sort of less impactful on the business in terms of losing those systems. Your recovery time objective is slightly longer. You're looking at 24, 48 hours, and so on. Once we have all of those tiers, which has been driven out by using this governance, risk, and compliance matrix and ITIL principles, we get something like this, another busy slide. And I'm going to break this down very easily. This is the tier of the system, tier 0 and tier 1. This is the business capability it supports. This is the IT capability. That is how long, the longest time that we have to recover the system in the event of an outage. And then over here, the odd-shaped little green ones, that's listed Postilion and C2, that's the application. And then everything else with these shapes and the colors above that are sort of your infrastructure things. So if I take an example here, the business capability is to a store's ability to sell any stock using debit and credit cards. And then we've got Woolworths South Africa online. So that's our website. So it's the ability for a customer to pay at our store with a till. So you're not looking at cash with a debit or a credit card. You're not looking at cash at this point in time. Right? The IT capability, so what we need to deliver to that business capability is a high availability within the given RTO. So the system needs to be highly available. It needs to be up all the time. There's no workaround. So once you can't accept cards in your store, there's no real manual workaround to that. Save calling the bank for every single customer card and asking if the customer's got enough credit on the card, for example. It's an uninterrupted service. It is normally load balanced or replicated between our first and our second data center. And then we also write the data back to both DCs. So that's some of the IT capabilities that is supporting that business capability over here. Like I said, it's got a recovery time objective of 0 to 2 hours. And then it's the Postilion system, as I mentioned before. The underlying infrastructure that we need in place for the Postilion application is your network core, your integration layer, your links to the various banks, your wide area network, Active Directory, Hyper-V, infrastructure, SQL, ESX. All of those things are required to be able to recover or to deliver the service to the business. So tier 0, because of this IT capability and because of the business capability over here, this is what drives how we architect the system. When I give this slide to the head of infrastructure and he looks at the tier 0 application, he automatically knows he needs it replicated between 2 data centers. It needs to be active, high availability. It's got a short RTO. And when he takes that and he builds the system, obviously he goes through a financial processes because he has to procure all of the hardware and so on. He will make sure he has a network core, a Cisco network core in both data centers. He'll have an Active Directory server in both data centers. He will have BizStore functionality running out of 2 data centers, perhaps in a stretched SQL cluster. He will have F5 GTMs in both data centers and so on. So this slide is actually driven or dictated to the head of infrastructure in terms of how the hardware will be provisioned for this application. From an application team point of view, when it's handed to the application team, they know that the application needs to be written in a way that it can function out of 2 data centers across a stretched SQL cluster, for example. The context of this slide is by doing service level management properly and linking it to IT continuity, service management has essentially, I don't like to use the word, but we've dictated to a technical team what principles need to be considered when they build the infrastructure of the system, and what concessions need to be made from an application point of view in how they install and how they run this application on the hardware. So that is really our tiering in a nutshell. Of course, I can go into our tier 1. Our tier 1, you can see there'll be a limited workaround. It's high availability in DC1 in our first data center only, and then we might write a copy of the data to our second data center, but it's not sort of synchronous, it's asynchronous, or maybe it's just a fracture and we clone the database at the end of the working day. There's various methods that we use in terms of how we provision all of these systems. So what this slide is showing you here is how we derive at what our service level agreements are with our business when they've given us the requirement, how we recover a system and how we actually build the system, and it's a starting point in terms of how we recover a system from a disaster recovery point of view. Just a FYI, I find it very difficult to speak to this slide in a short period of time, because I always say that it's more, the slide is, we're trying to illustrate something that is more a way of thinking, and it was something that was born out of a disaster we had when we lost our storage area network about 3 years ago, and we struggled to recover. We took about 36 hours to recover from that, and really it was to provide the business, the IT organization and the business with a method of how we recover our systems and which are the most important systems that we go after. So if there are any questions, I'm sure you guys can get my contact details from Jim or Alan on the slide, and I'll be very happy to discuss it further with you. But for now, just because of the time constraints, that is essentially an explanation of that slide. Going to the next slide, just to unpack a service level agreement quite to the lower level of detail. You've got a store, you've got a network, you've got a server here with a database, storage, another server, a network, and it goes to the bank. This is depicting the view or the route that a card swipe, a Visa or MasterCard swipe in a store takes. With behind each of these pieces of infrastructure or between each of them is an operational level agreement. So the other thing we've done is, this is the sort of take me to the next level. Every single touch point on how our data moves from one system to another system, we've made an operational level agreement. So it's a physical piece of paper, a negotiation between 2 technical teams to say that I will get the planning data or the sales data from my system into the integration layer by midnight every night. The integration manager then says, I will process this for 40 nanoseconds, and then I will pass it on to the receiving system by 12:05 or 5 minutes after midnight every evening, and that's an agreement. We negotiated, it's an agreement, and it's signed, and we put alerting on all of our interfaces for that to happen. So the moment something doesn't happen, what happens beyond what the OLA stipulates, it fires off an alert, and we know exactly what the impact is going to be on downstream systems. Once again, another slide that I'll be very happy to take everyone through more detail with. Just some quick wins and some tips. So this is just me sharing our organization's journey in terms of what we've done in service level management, and just some of the things that we consider and what's worked for us. On the people side, for service level management, we sent all of our people to be ITIL certified because they need to understand how to broker service level agreements with the business, and they need to understand what the service level agreement is and how to get to it, how to write it up and what it means, and how to then translate that into alerting in the monitoring space so that we hit all of our targets from a service level agreement point of view. Under the process, it's important that it was important for us to understand system tiering and prioritization. So After we tiered our systems, we knew which are the most business critical systems, and therefore that is what drove priority. If we lost 10 systems, we'll go to the tiering and we'll start at our tier 0 systems first. If we need to recover a whole bunch of systems, we'll start with tier 0 first and we'll work our way down the scale to the tier 3 systems. From an IT governance point of view, risk aversion and mitigation, all of our critical incidents get reported on a governance report which the board reviews once a quarter. So I have an accountability to the board, a responsibility to the board to make sure that there are any tier 0, tier 1 systems outages, that we've addressed them and that we've logged problems for them and resolved them at root cause. Everything that is, and then the percentages at the bottom are really the amount of effort we've expended into the process side of things, the IT governance and the people. And you'll always notice that a lot of the effort will normally be under the people side. So really understanding system tiering prioritization, that's why I said that slide is very difficult to understand or very difficult to explain, because it took us a long time to get everybody to think along the lines of tiering. What is tier 0? And, you know, it's a principle. I always say it's like the military DEFCON, DEFCON 0, DEFCON 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each DEFCON or each tier has got attributes, and those attributes are then just applied to the system when the system inherits the tier. And when the system moves up from a tier 0 to a tier 1, or it gets allocated a tier, it automatically inherits the service level agreement that we brokered with the business. So we don't broker service level agreements for a system, we broker it for a tier, and then we give the system a tier. Everything you see under innovation is things that the technology, the service stack, and that CA, in terms of the modernization of the system, has given us. And the key thing for us is that all incidents, problems, and changes are linked to SLAs. When we log an incident or problem or change is always linked to an SLA. So we know what SLA is being is in danger of being violated if somebody logs an incident, or if there's a problem logged against it, and if somebody logs a change as well, we know if that change fails, what SLA it's going to affect. So that speaks to integrating between incident, problem, and change. And sort of the driver for all of that is the service level management component. The next process is really an incident management process. So incident management process, I believe everybody does well. I think the key thing for us is really that you need fast action, you need a quick service restoration. And the biggest thing for us was we needed something that was scalable. So if it was a keyboard that's not working, or if it was a storage area network that went down, we wanted the users to, the triggers needed to be exactly the same, and the process in terms of logging the incident to resolution needed to be exactly the same. So we didn't want multiple incident management processes when we needed one, and certainly that is what we found with CA Service Desk. It provided a very simple and a very ITIL compliant, if you want to call, incident management process that was built in at the foundational level. And then the key thing for us is what we did. We were very overconfident when we mapped our incident management process. We built our incident management process and structured our help desk on the assumption that we would resolve 90%, I think it was about 80 or 90% of our incidents at first line. So that is when the person on the phone is resolving your incident. Obviously, first line resolution is the best. That's the one you want to go for, because that gives you better customer satisfaction, and then your users don't have to, you know, your users, the downtime, it minimizes the downtime on the user side. The technology that we use is obviously driving our CA, our incident management is CA Service Desk Manager. Since implementing this new incident management process, we've got a single set of categorization that we take throughout the incident lifestyle. It allows us to pick up trends. Once we have trends, we formulate hit teams to go, which is really our problem management side of things, but I'm referring now more to the data mining. If you want to mine your data, of your incident data, you need a consistent way of classifying your incidents. And surely that is one of the benefits we've gotten out of CA Services is the method of classification is quite simple to apply. It happens consistently, and if you want to change it, there's no issue with backdating it back to your history. You just take it from that point on forward. Since implementing this, we've managed to get to root cause of many of our incidents, and we've reduced our total incidents in the business by up to about 20%. And when I last checked in November, we'd reduced network outages by as much as, it was about 65%. We've taken 38% of incidents out of our point of sale environment, and in our desktop environment, we're now resolving 67% at first contact, so at first line, and we've reduced the number of incidents by a third. And I want you to keep in mind that we do not have self-service for our users in terms of resetting their passwords. We still reset passwords in our help desk. So it includes that number. So it's a high number of incidents we've taken out of the system. And really the big win for us has been that. And the key thing was creating this multifunctional help desk where CA service desk technology allows the user to phone in or log in their own incident via a web page or email an incident, email a form to the help desk to get the incident logged. So that was really the big thing for us. Create your service desk as if you are going to resolve 80 to 90% of your incidents at first contact, so be optimistic about it. And the second thing we did was we created this multifunctional, multi-channeled help desk where a user doesn't only need to get phone in, they can email in, they can SMS in, they can log onto a web page and they can log the incident. And with mobility coming in, the new version now that is upgraded to, a user can now go onto a smartphone and log their own incidents. And it also gives our engineers in the field who are going to our stores the ability to update incidents and to log incidents sort of when they're on the road, obviously not while they're driving, but when they arrive to the site, they can update the incidents immediately and we know when the incident has been resolved. Some of our quick wins and tips under incident management. Our process caters for cybersecurity and well, to cybersecurity incidents as well. So if we get hacked or if there's our data, our firewall's been breached, it caters for our incident management process caters for those type of things. Like I said before, we focus a lot on service restoration at first line, so we are optimistic and said this is the number, the percentage of incidents we want to resolve at first line. We went for 80 to 90%, we're taking 67% at this point. And then on the people side, a big thing for us was that no matter how good your process is, you need your users and you need your second line support to follow it. And that really is it's a gospel that in service management we need to preach. If there's an incident, if there's a problem, log an incident. Don't let people email the technical teams, don't let them phone the technical teams, they need to log an incident for everything. For that, when we have a record of what happened, that's the only, we then mine that data and then that allows us to log problems and then we resolve the issues permanently. If the help desk doesn't know, my rule is if no incident has been logged, then the system didn't break. If the incident has been logged, then the system broke. And the innovation, and this really is, like I mentioned before, is what CA Service Desk has automated for us, is to create that omni-channel for users to interact with support. So you can log into a smartphone, do it. You can email. You can. I don't think we've activated SMS, but we've got the feedback on SMS. You can log into a web page. You can phone the help desk. You can email. You can log onto an app on your phone, and you can interact with the service desk tool and log your incidents. And then obviously the amount of effort expended into that. As you can see, it's always very high on the process side of things. Sorry about the vernacular. We say process. No, I know in the United States we say process, but we say process, but we say process. And the problem management. So here, really, problem management was, we mapped problem management on the back of mining incident data. So what do we do with the incident data after we've mined it? And we found out that point of sale device number 5 in one of our top 10 stores breaks down every week. So that is the categorization is what allows us to do that type of incident mining, and then it comes into the sort of your problem management processes. And the key thing for us in the problem management process was if you want to know why something happened, and that's problem management. It doesn't have to be an active incident. It can be something where the service has been restored to as well. But problem management, the key thing we adopted, the reason why we adopted it was to reduce the overall number of incidents in the environment. So prior to this on the journey, we were doing about 24,000 incidents. We're sitting at about, I think, on our last check, about 19,000 overall incidents. Obviously, the business grows, the amount of users grow, the amount of stores grow, our distribution centers get bigger. So it's not like for like. but the overall number sort of is dropping. It hasn't remained static and it hasn't increased, which means problem management in the environment is working. Key things we focus on are workarounds, so getting a user to work while you resolve the problem permanently in the background, and then root cause analysis and root cause resolution, resolving incidents where the actual failure has occurred. And those were the key things that we needed, that we wanted to get out of our problem management process. And very much like our incident management process, we log tickets for all of our problems. It gets categorized properly, it gets reviewed, it goes through what we call a hit team concept, and then they sort of take the problems out of it and then resolve them and put it on their work log. And then it ultimately ends up in a change which then gets implemented and then resolves the issue at root cause. In the meantime, that could be 3 months down the line. The user's been working for 3 months, but at least we know we've resolved a potential cause of multiple incidents, for example. Some of the quick wins and the tips that we have for our incident management process is unresolved problems pose a significant business risk. So all of our unresolved problems go on our governance report, and our group chief operating officer wants regular feedback on that quarterly, sometimes monthly, in terms of what are we doing to reduce the number of incidents and to fix the root cause of the incident. So they're not worried what happened, or if something has been fixed. They want to know, has it been prevented? Have you prevented it from happening again? So a huge focus on problem management. Under the process side of things, I always tell people who come in, and we become sort of a reference site for a couple of organizations in South Africa. They come and find out in terms of, just how we do things on our side. First, measure what you are doing against the industry best practice. Everybody is doing some kind of a problem management, whether in their personal lives or in the work environment, because the moment you're going after the root cause of something or you're trying to understand why it happened, you are now engaged or you've activated some sort of a problem management process. So within your organization, look at what you have at the present. Don't look at ITIL yet, and then reference that against what ITIL says you should be doing. You'll probably find that you are doing 40, 50, 60% of what ITIL prescribes in any case, and all you need to do is now just put some structure to it, and then you have a sort of an ITIL certified problem management process. And the people becoming predictably consistent. It's a phrase that I like to use, consistently predictable or predictably consistent. Whenever there's an issue and you want to know why it happened, log a problem for it. No matter how small, no matter what the impact is, the goal here is to get people working in a specific way. When there's an incident and I resolve it and I want the root cause, I must log a problem. And when you get people thinking like that, gradually over time it becomes second nature. And once it becomes second nature, you've got a problem management process that has been ingrained in it. So this took a lot of talking and preaching and sort of making it the gospel, saying when there's an incident and you resolve it, and once you want to know why it happened, log a problem for it. And it speaks a lot to the softer side of things. What good is a process if you've mapped it and you know it will work, but nobody's following it? And sort of that's the approach that we took with many of our processes, but specifically it was very high on our agenda with problem management. Under innovation, centers of excellence in incident analysis provided key insights. We have a team that sits and all they do is they mine incident data. And I can't say this enough. If you haven't categorized your incidents properly, there's no point in mining it. If I have 1,500 point of sale incidents per month, I can't go through each and every one. I need to be able to categorize what's hardware, what's software, what's network. And and by categorizing your incidents properly, it gives you meaningful data. And I think data leads to information. Yeah, correct. You first have data, and data means nothing, and once you've analyzed it, you have information, and then you can act on information. And the reason it's so important is because we've had 3 tools prior to CS Service Desk which couldn't give us the proper consistency and the correct level of categorization that CS Service Desk was able to give us. So a lot of why we have this data mining and this problem management works is because our data mining works, and our data mining works because essentially what I'm saying is we've partnered with the correct vendor and we have the correct Service Desk software that works for our organization, that they're working well for us and doing what it's supposed to do and what it was designed to do. So Center of Excellence mining data has given us absolute unbelievable benefits in terms of getting to the root cause of a lot of our issues. On to the next slide. I'm just very wary of the time, but you guys are just starting your working day. I'm ending my working day. And the change management process, I think this is where a lot of work was done. And really, if you want to look at what the star is in Woolworths IT today, it is our change management process. And I was watching a series the other day. Anyway, I don't have enough time to get into that. But I say this without any ego, without any pride, or, I'm not being egotistical about it. I have myself and my team have complete and total say, based on the mandate that our CIO has given us, in terms of what change goes in and when it goes in, irrespective of the priority that the business has put on a system change going in, whether it's new functionality or whether it's a new piece of software. That is how strong our change management process is. As you can see from here, we have various categories of changes: major, card data environment because of PCI, significant changes, standard changes, minor changes. We have a daily change approval board that reviews all minor and standard changes. And we provide a 2-day lead time. You can't present your change today and implement today. You present your change today and you implement on the next day, on the following day. So 2-day lead time. We have a weekly CAB that is held with for all of our major and significant changes. And I've got the IT leadership team, barring the CIO, and all of their direct reports called the IT management team. So not the technical managers, the direct report line of the technical managers that sign off all of our major changes. These are plotted on a forward schedule of changes that we have built in CA Service Desk as far in advance as 9 months. If I look into CA Service Desk now, I can see all of our changes that goes at least between 3 and 9 months. So it just depends on the discipline of the area, but 3 months is what I demand, and in some cases they give us 6 months and 9 months. So that really is, in a nutshell, our change management process. We do impact assessment and analysis on every single major change. We do that impact analysis with IT and with our business partners. We do communication on all of our changes. Our business know exactly what to expect. And all of our changes are done in slots when the business can most afford for an outage to occur. In other words, we do them after hours when the users aren't working. And that really, in a nutshell, is our change management process. This is a lot. I know this. I normally get a lot of questions around change management, and it's an open invitation to everyone if you want to discuss change management more. I, for one, completely believe that in the South African context, we do this better than anybody else. I'm not sure what's in South America. I know what is in Australia, and Australia follows this process that my team has mapped to the T. So I can honestly stand here, hand on heart, and say we've got the best change management process in the Southern Hemisphere. I haven't really looked at what everyone else is doing in the Northern Hemisphere, but it's a solid process, and it works well for our business. It puts service management in the driving seat, and it's really about making sure that changes don't have any impact on the business. Just in terms of the quick wins and the tips that I can share with you, a forward schedule and predefined maintenance slots. We've given all of our systems maintenance slots. Everybody knows when they can take their system down, and they implement all of their changes in their maintenance slots, never outside of the maintenance slots. And the forward schedule gives you a view of what's happening. We give projects priority. So a project team goes in and says, I'm releasing on that date, which means we don't do any business as usual changes on that date. From a process point of view, we made changes, easy to log and difficult to get approval. The form of how to fill in a change needs to be quite simple. The process of how to get approval for the change needs to be tough, because that's basically where we put on the rubber glove and then really take the change apart in terms of how did you test, how long did you test, who signed up this change, who reviewed the code, and so on and so on. On the people side, it's very important that everybody understands the change process. We get a lot of developers coming in here straight from university, straight from college. They know how to write in the language. Nobody shows them what a change control process is. It's just been mentioned by a lecturer. We need to constantly educate people in terms of why do they log changes, how do they log changes, and it needs to be quite simple for them to understand. And they need to know that if I log a change today, I can't go in tomorrow. I can only log an emergency change if something is broken, emergency changes for nothing else. If I need to go into the data center, I need to log a change called a CDE change. So the change categories need to be well defined and everybody needs to know what it is that how the process works. Under innovation, forward schedule of changes and approval by email. At this point in time, all of our changes generate, when it's logged, it generates an email that goes to the person that must approve it. They just need to reply to the email, and then that changes the status of the change to approved. They don't need to log into the CS Service Desk application. And obviously, I've spoken a bit about the calendar. We are probably going to request from CA to blank out certain dates within the calendar. And when a calendar date has been blanked out, we don't want people to be able to raise changes for that date. So you blank it out in the calendar. When somebody goes to the change form and they want to select that date to log their change and to implement, it won't allow them to use that date. So that's all coming very handy when you're managing freeze periods. And like we don't touch our point of sale over weekends because it's peak trading and over month ends and so on and so on. So that's just in terms of, the next few months where we're going with our change management process. I think I've just got about 1 or 2 slides left. Okay, so basically where we are on our maturity journey, the things that we are doing well, we've got great sentiment between business and IT. Business and IT works very close on things that are pertaining to IT. Incident management, we're doing exceptionally well. Request fulfillment, I didn't speak much about that, but we're doing it exceptionally well. In fact, we're in the process of next few months, we're going to be rolling out technical requests. So if an application person wants another table added to a database or another column added to a database, they just need to log a request. It doesn't need to go through change control. Obviously, these are all things that are done regularly with a low risk profile. Those are the things that will move from changes into requests. But our request system, request performance wasn't very well. People requesting laptops and a mouse and a new phone line. And we've even extended that to non-IT things. The process works so well, we've extended it to non-IT things. So somebody needs a desk chair and the aircon at the desk isn't working or something like that. We've got all of that in request fulfillment, and we've got it in incident management. I forgot to actually mention that up front. Service level management, like I say, very mature process. It's a combined framework with business continuity principles that falls under governance, risk, and compliance. I haven't found any organization that does it the way we've done it. It's normally just a break and fix SLA, but we've got uptime SLAs. We've got within our documented SLAs, we've documented what time systems need to be up, how long they need to be up for a day, for a month, for a year. When are the maintenance slots? What's the maximum amount of downtime allowed in a month or in a year? And those are all tracked within our service level management framework. And then obviously, like I said, the crown jewel really for me is change management, because if everything else doesn't work well, change management is really your catch-all. It's the net. Everybody must come to CAB. Everyone needs to come to CAB to make sure that the change gets approved, unless they do the change and it's not authorized. The processes that we're really going to be focusing on for continuous improvement for this calendar year is problem management, and it's really just something that needs to be ingrained and become second nature to all of our technical teams. Governance, risk compliance, and security. Like I said, a lot of incidents touch on that, like data breaches, getting hacked, things around cybersecurity and so on. So those are things that we need to strengthen up a lot on. And then IT asset auto-discovery and management is going to be big for us for 2017. So it's auto-discovering all of our assets, our tools, our routers, our laptops, and our PCs. And then basically we are in the process of building a config management system on top of that, and then release and deployment. And what I really mean by release and deployment is the automation of release and deployment. It's not the actual process, the actual automation component of that. And then in terms, just coming back to our maturity prototype, the highlighted technologies listed here are the ones that got us to where we are today, and the ones that are at the bottom here, IT asset manager and process automation, are the things that we are using to go after the next list of highlighted processes, which will bring us into sort of more the proactive and the predictive state of service management. That's it for me.
Qaneet, that was fantastic. I would class wrapped up in about an hour's presentation, so thank you very much.
No problem.
There were a few questions here, and I just wanted to ask you, and we have, obviously we're at the top of the hour here, just a bit over, but the few questions that came in, I wanted to ask you, maybe you could respond briefly. First was related to problem management.
Yeah.
How does Woolworths communicate back to the problem requester that not all problems go through root cause analysis? How is that communicated?
How do we communicate back to the problem requester that it doesn't always go through root cause analysis?
Correct.
Okay, so the problem requester in a Woolworths context is never going to be a user. Any system breakdown or any service disruption for the user, we always, or our perspective is the user always sees that as an incident because it's a breakdown of the service. So if we put in a temporary workaround, that user is up and running and they're working, but the root cause is sort of still unresolved, that becomes now an IT thing. We do tell the user, you're working, you're up and running, but we still need to determine what the root cause is and we need to fix that. So that takes care of that one. So the problem requester in most cases is always somebody within the IT environment. So it's somebody in an application team saying the reason why the reports were up late is because I'm consistently getting this file 1 hour late for the last month. But where the user is concerned, it's not a problem, it's an incident. Within IT, the problem requester is always a technical person. From that point of view, I think there's really two parts that you go down is you're going to either do root cause analysis on something and find out what's impacting it, or you're not going to do root cause analysis on it. In our environment, the only example I can give you of when we've never done root cause analysis has really been when we know a project that's going to go live in the next week or 2 weeks or month or 3 months or whatever it is, as long as it's within maybe 6 months, is going to eliminate the root cause of that problem. So we've got an issue at the moment where, from a technology point of view, we can't get our reports up on time, and that is because of the amount of data we're churning, but we're running off an Infomix database, and we know that we're moving our data warehouse maybe to an Oracle database in the next 6 months, and then we'll sort of live with the not doing root cause analysis on it now, knowing that Oracle can maybe handle a higher volume or more complexity in terms of processing data. So that's the only example, unfortunately, that I can give you of when we don't do root cause analysis on anything. However, we've learned to rather be honest with our business, and we always tell them the truth in terms of what happened. If we don't do root cause analysis on anything, we normally upfront about it and say, we will be doing nothing on this incident because you've got a workaround in place, and we know that the project to upgrade from maybe Infomix or move from Infomix to Oracle in the next 6 months will take away this problem permanently, so there's nothing sort of to worry about. So I really hope that is answering the question.
I think that does. That does clear that up. And then secondly, the other question from someone here was, do all standard pre-approved changes go through daily CAB review?
No, they don't.
No.
Standard daily, okay, so yeah, I should have mentioned this. Standard changes are logged and they can be implemented within 5 minutes of being logged. But before something becomes a standard change, it's logged as a significant change. And the description of that significant change is, I would like this change and the details of the change to become a standard change in future. So let's just give an example. We do not debit our customers' accounts on a public holiday. So if a public holiday falls on a debit order day, we then need to move that debit order to another day. Right? Because of legislation, our government doesn't allow us to do it because they want people to go out and spend money on a public holiday. They don't want their account to be debited. So when we need to move that debit order to another date, we log a standard change for it. But the CAB, the major CAB, has already reviewed that change and said, you know what, we've got no say in this as legislation is driving it. It's a known thing. The implementation of the change is simple enough. It's just going into a line of code and changing a date. Or maybe it's even something that's done on the front end and then changing the date. And the risk of doing this change and it's failing is actually acceptable. So I might be using a bad example, but I'm just trying to explain to the factors that are considered before something becomes a standard change. Once the CAB is approved and it ticks all that boxes, low risk, easy to do, we do this regularly, it's never failed when we've done it, and we've really got no say in doing this. It gets approved that it can now be a standard change, and then we create a template in CA Service Desk for that change specifically. So I can't just log a standard change. When I select standard change, it asks me which template do you want to use. And the templates are all predefined. And once I select the template, and it is to change the debit orders, the moment I click on it and my line manager has approved it, I can implement it immediately. But it does not get reviewed by CAB because they're high volume normally, low risk, easy to do. You know what? It's like clicking on my computer on my desktop. Do I need a change control for that? No, I don't. I do it every day. It never fails. It always works. It's those type of considerations that go into something becoming a standard change. But like I said, the CAB first approved that this change, the description of this change, fits the criteria and ticks all the boxes to become a standard change in future.
Understood. Okay, I think that's well explained. And then lastly, I know we're over here, but I do have one question, and that is specific to your organizational structure, the concept and the role of the change enablement practitioner. How important of a role is that in terms of how you've been able to evolve, the processes and kind of drive those throughout the organization, IT organization, and the business? Can you just speak to that briefly?
Okay, so that role has actually played an extremely important role for us, because when we've implemented these new processes, like for example problem management, what that role did for us, it packaged what problem management was, and then we basically did road shows going to all of the technical teams and explaining to them what problem management is, why we need to do it, why it's important, what are the benefits, and so on. And this person then essentially becomes the PR. That person is the PR, the public relations person for service management. So you might have a technical project with a change manager, and that change manager is dealing with your users in terms of getting them to work differently and to adopt this new system and to be able to use this new system. And if you have any issues, please contact me and I'll guide you through it. That is the exact role that this change manager plays when we implement new service management processes or when we make changes to our current processes. So this person is always beating that drum in terms of how important it is to log changes, how to log a change, why we do problem management. It's really that PR, that public relations, that mouthpiece, that amplifier of why things need to be done in a sort of auditable fashion, why these processes need to follow and what the benefits are of it. So it's played an important role. We would not have been able to do it had we not had that role or a person in that role that was going to the IT teams along with myself and some of the service managers and preaching this gospel of why we do things like this and what's the importance and what are the benefits in terms of it. So absolutely, if you want to change anything in service management, you must have a change manager, because that change manager is ultimately the person that is going to help you package the thing that you're trying to implement or package this change that makes it easier for your technical teams to accept it and to adopt it into their day-to-day way of working. And that is ultimately what we want to do. We want incident and problem and change to be second nature to people. They must know exactly what do I need to log a change for. And that we saw as an ongoing process, and if we didn't do it in an ongoing fashion, and then people would fall by the wayside because they'd forget, new people would come in, you've got staff turnover, they don't do the handovers aren't done properly, you've got new people, new recruits coming in, new graduates coming in. So it's something that we do on an ongoing basis throughout the year.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. Well, listen, I think that's it in terms of time. I wish we had more time. We could probably spend an entire day just covering all the topics that you've raised. So I'd like to say on behalf of the community on the ITSM side, I really think this has been a fantastic journey that you guys have been through, Woolworths has been through, and I'm sure that there are many parallels out there, with all of our listeners and viewers. So I'd like to say thank you from a CA standpoint and from a community standpoint. And we hope to have you back, and maybe we can take a deep dive into either change or problem and go into the specifics. So I'd like to say thank you for your time, Qaneet. We really appreciate it. We know it's late there, but I really think it's been beneficial. So thank you.
Sure, no problem. It's been an absolute pleasure. But yeah, I just couldn't see anybody. I see there's still about 57 people on. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy speaking about this. One of my colleagues asked me as I came into the CIO's office to do it now, if I prepared, and I said, you don't need to prepare when you're telling the truth and when you're telling the story. So, it's something I love speaking about. It's, service management needs to be in your blood. If it's not in your blood, you can map what process you want to, you're not going to get it right. It's a really a personal thing. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, and sure, no problem. I mean, you can give you're welcome to give my email or my contact details to anybody who wants it, if they want to speak in more detail about any of the things we've covered, and I'll be happy to.
Will do. Okay, we'll definitely post that out to the group. So I'll say thank you, and good afternoon, and hopefully everyone have a great rest of their day. And Qaneet, enjoy your evening, and we will be speaking to you soon.
Will do. Thanks a lot, Jim. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks. That was great, Qaneet. Well done.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.